Without any further ado, Jim, I want to hand this over to you. I'm really excited that you are agreeing to share with us, and your information is so valuable. So just can't wait to hear about your story and your sage advice on sight loss. Jim Pilkington, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jason. And the purpose or the topic of this is adjusting to vision loss. And the following are my thoughts and observations. This has nothing to do with my employer, which is a Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. I'm an assistive technology instructor. I do not speak for that agency or any other agency or group. This is just me, Jim the blind guy, talking about his experiences. So take that for what it's worth. I ain't perfect, and I don't pretend to be any kind of an expert on this. Just for those who are seeing the video or not seeing it, if you're blind, I'm a 61, almost 62-year-old blind guy. So dark hair, gray beard. That's what you're seeing on the screen. So nothing too specific there. A little bit about myself. I'm a Colorado native, born and raised here. I'm one of the 13 remaining Colorado natives in the state. Fish and Game says they're going to start tagging us soon because there's so few of us. Everyone in the state seems to be from elsewhere. As a kid, I was a nearsighted, nerdy kind of kid. I never did have good vision. Always had the big, thick Coke bottle glasses growing up. And because my distance vision was always poor, I was never very, very athletic or good at sports. I couldn't catch or throw a ball to save my life, but by gosh, I could read a book. And so I was the kid that was always carrying around a pile of books and had my nose in a book, growing up. That sort of naturally progressed and evolved into being a science geek. And growing up, I was in high school about the time when computers became a thing that average people could interact with. You didn't have to be a scientist or work for IBM. And so I went to college to CSU in Fort Collins, Colorado. Studied computer science and mathematics and got a degree there. My working career, I've been a computer nerd of various flavors. I've been a programmer, system administrator, CAD/CAM support person, software tester. So, anything related to keyboards and screens, that was my job description. I have an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa. Wow, big $100 college word, which just means that the light sensitive cells in the back of the eye that convert light into signals to your brain, they start failing. They start going offline, and your brain starts operating on less information. And RP, as it's known, has about 100 different genetic variants. And depending on which variant you have, that determines the age of onset and how fast it progresses, and a lot of different attributes related to the vision loss. I was kind of a late bloomer. I didn't even know I had RP until I was 40 years old. I knew there was something wrong with my eyes because even though I was nearsighted, I just started noticing abnormalities, and went from one eye doctor to another, and they would tell me things like, well, you're getting into middle age and you probably just need some different glasses, or maybe you need to wear bifocals or something like that. And like I say, it wasn't until I was 40 years old that I was finally diagnosed with RP, and started getting a handle on that stage of my life. When that happened and my vision deteriorated, I didn't know anything about assistive technology at that time. I didn't know it existed. And so I thought, well, if I can't see a computer screen, I can't work anymore. I can't be a computer guy. Later on, I did discover, there is this thing called assistive technology, and there are blind skills training to teach people how to be, a successful, independent blind person. I just didn't know at the time. Um, we talk about moments in our lives that are pivotal, that really change the course of your life. And meeting my first AT instructor was one of those pivotal moments. I thought I couldn't be a computer guy anymore. I couldn't be a technology person anymore. And in a 20-minute meeting, my first AT instructor completely blew my mind and changed the course of my life. So, keep that in mind on your own journey, that small things, little nudges in the right direction can have serious consequences in your life journey. When I did finally find out about blindness training, I found out through the NFB and through DVR, the agency, the state agency here that teaches those things. Started getting training, started learning how to navigate and orient using a white cane. Started learning AT skills, started learning daily living skills, Braille, all the standard Braille blind skills. And I was all set. I thought I had the rest of my life sort of charted out. I was scheduled to take a course in JAWS scripts. JAWS is a screen reader program that's very popular. And because I had been a programmer, I was going to become a JAWS programmer and learn how to do that kind of scripting. And I was about a week away from going down to Florida for this intensive 80-hour training down in St. Petersburg. And I got a call on the phone from the company that did the training. They said, well, we're sorry to report that the teacher for that training passed away suddenly. And it's probably going to be a year before we get a new instructor in there. So then I'm kind of adrift. I didn't know what to do. At that time, I had been tutoring, volunteering at the DVR Center in Denver, teaching other students computer skills. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed tutoring. I enjoyed teaching. It's something that I thought I was pretty good at, and I got good feedback from my students. So I decided to pretty much volunteer full time, waiting for Freedom Scientific, the software company, to get a new instructor on board. And so I tutored and volunteered for about a year, and at the end of that year, a job came open at the center, and one of the instructors at DVR said, Jim, you're pretty good at this stuff. Why don't you try for that job? And I hadn't even considered it, honestly, but I applied and managed to convince them to take a chance on this guy who didn't have a teaching credential. The only thing I had going for me was I was a computer geek, and they had seen me at work. They had seen me working with other students, and apparently they liked what they saw. So they took a big risk, hired me, and I have been working for DVR now for about 12 years. And honestly, it's the best job I've ever had. I enjoy it immensely. I know what kind of a difference learning blind skills made in my life. It literally saved my life and saved my sanity. So every day I love doing this work. So that's my introduction. So the main part of my presentation here is getting my notes in order. I've written down about, I think it's about 14 observations or Jim's rules of thumb for adjustment to vision loss. These are in no particular order. I do try to link these things to stories or anecdotes or humorous occurrences, because I think that that humanizes it and makes it a little easier to remember. People that I've talked to, when they give me a good example, I've stolen it from them, and I tell all my students, steal from the best. If you find a good example of something, latch onto it. give attribution where appropriate, but however you can get it to stick in your mind and be useful to you, go ahead and do it. So here's my rules. Number one, you are now a Martian. What I mean by that is I tell my students, coping with vision loss it's like aliens in a flying saucer come swooping down one day and scoop you up and drop you on a foreign planet. You're on Mars now. Welcome to Mars. They do things differently here. You have to learn how to be a new person, this new blind Martian person. A lot of those skills that you have learned as a sighted person, no matter what your level of vision was before, you're going to have to adjust and adapt. And that's, for human beings, adaptation is our superpower. We don't have fangs and claws. We don't have scales and armor. We can't run 40 miles an hour. What we can do is adjust and observe and adapt like no other species on Earth. That's what's kept us around for thousands and thousands of years, is we can adjust to just about anything. Tsunamis, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, landslides, avalanches, you name it, we can deal with it. And that's a huge plus for us as human beings and for us as blind people. And just to be straightforward, I'm just going to use the dreaded B word. I'm going to say blind, and I apply that to anyone with significant visual loss. Even if you can still see some things, like in my example, I can still sense some motion way off in the corner of my eye. I can sense a little bit of motion, but I still call myself blind because it's just easier when I'm explaining it to people. When someone asks me, well, what can you see? It's just impossible to try and describe that verbally. And I don't even try anymore because, number one, they won't get it. And number two, it's just going to exhaust you trying to explain it to them. So just use the B word, adapt it, adopt it. It's a descriptive term. It's there for a reason. Don't be afraid of it. So in adjusting to this new planet that you're on, you're going to have to learn new habits. And this leads to my second point. The good news is that in all of human history, no matter when in history or where on Earth, this is the best place and time to be a blind person, 100% without doubt. The amount of access we have to information, to medicine, to transportation that we have is unparalleled in history. We have more access to information. Most of us carry around smartphones. That is a supercomputer in the palm of your hand. If you can frame a question, a factual question, and ask it of your smart device, you will probably get an answer in less than a minute, a factual answer. That's a power that presidents and kings and queens and popes didn't have 50 years ago. And that's huge. That is a huge game changer for us as blind people. Another piece of good news is that 99% of whatever you did as a sighted person, you can do as a blind person. I'm not just saying that to be upbeat and to blow sunshine at you. It's true, and I believe it. You're going to have to do it differently. You're going to have to adjust and adapt and learn some new rules, but absolutely, you can do most of the things you did as a sighted person. You're just going to do it differently. One of my standard jokes is if I knew it was going to be this much work learning how to be blind, I would have chosen something different to do. Another part is you're going to need training. Nobody figures this out solo. You're going to have some teachers to show you the way along here. Another good piece of news is you will find out from these teachers as you learn blind skill that you will have independently invented some of these tools and techniques by yourself. That's that ingenuity. That's that human adaptation kicking in. So don't be surprised if you're working with a teacher to have that aha moment when they tell you, oh, this is the best way to do X. And you say, wow, I've been doing that for a while. I figured that out on my own. Pat yourself on the back, because that's good. That means you're using that brain and that adaptation skill. I'm gonna be a little off color here, but the reason that we are so adaptable is that we are all genetic badasses. We are standing at the top of a pyramid of survivors. There are literally billions of our ancestors that passed on their genes to us by being really adaptable and smart and bendy, as I like to say, flexible in their outlook and their ways of doing things. So that's another one of my sayings. You are a genetic badass. You are a survivor. So make use of that. When you're learning, when you're training with these things, it's very easy to let pride and embarrassment sort of limit you. I remember when I was first learning how to use a cane for mobility, I felt very self-conscious. It was very tough for me to pick up a cane and use it in public, especially because I thought, wow, people are going to stare at me. People are going to know that I am a blind person, and it made me really uncomfortable. But then over the course of time, as I got better with the cane and more autonomous using it, I just decided, well, I don't really care what other people think of me. When they see me, they're just going to see a guy with a white cane. I'm probably never going to meet those people again. So what do I care what they think? And that's the way I approach it now. Not that I'm indifferent to their opinions. You know, I try to be a good, upstanding person. But you know, if they feel pity, well, that's their thing. That's not my thing. I'm using a tool to get my life done. And so you know, try not to let that hold you back. That's a psychological hurdle that you will have to overcome. And I tell all my students that adjusting to vision loss is a series of psychological hurdles. Uh, Everybody will have different hurdles. They will occur in different orders and at different occasions. You can't predict them, but just know that they will be there and you will experience them and you will have to adapt or overcome as they occur. Another good way of learning this stuff is not just from teachers, is by other members of the tribe. You know, join the blind tribe. Agencies like DVR or advocacy organizations like the National Federation of the Blind or the ACB, American Council of the Blind. Seek these groups out. You know, peer support groups. You will find when you get into a room with other blind people and you're just swapping stories, swapping information, and gold nuggets in those conversations. You know, if you say, you know, I've been having trouble figuring out how to do X, and you'll get 4 or 5 different ways that people have dealt with X. And, you know, most of them may not work for you, but that one will be a gold nugget, and it'll save you a lot of time and heartache by gaining from the experience of others. So join the tribe. Observation number 3: adjustment never ends. When I'm working with students or meeting other blind people, frequently get the question, well, when will I be, you know, done with this thing, with this whole adjustment process? And my answer is never. It's going to take the rest of your natural life. You might as well ask, well, when am I going to be fully human? Well, hopefully, as you progress through life, you will be learning new things at all ages. You will hopefully become a better person through that. Same thing with vision loss. I've been doing this for, oh my goodness, you know, a quarter century now, and I'm still learning things. Every single week, I learn something new. So, you know, take that to the bank. You're going to have to be patient. If you're not innately a patient person, you better work on that. as one of the fundamental virtues traditional virtues. Patience is that life will give you almost an infinite. Take advantage of that, even if it's hard, because if you don't learn patience, your head will explode. So try to be patient, try to be mindful of things, and improve your patience. It's a long-term goal. Since this presentation is to the Achilles group, I assume most of the audience is runners or no runners. It's like training for a marathon. You don't just wake up on Tuesday and say, I'm going to run a marathon this weekend, and I'm going to train for 3 days, and I'll be ready for the marathon. Doesn't work that way. We're talking years of preparation to get really good at this stuff. So have patience and take it slowly and one step at a time. I like to say, with patience, Zen is not just for Buddhists. Being in the state of Zazen, where you can just let things flow past you and not take them personally necessarily. That's a good skill to develop. Number 4, reset your goals and expectations. One of my sayings is that back when I could see and I could drive, I would run errands. I'd grab the car keys and go out and do things. Now that I'm blind, I plan expeditions. And that just gives you an idea of how much more work is required to be an independent blind person. As a sighted person, I could grab the car keys. I could go do two or three big things in a morning and be happy with it. Now, as a blind person, if I can get one good thing done in the morning, if I can get to the grocery store and back safely and efficiently, I am a happy camper for that day. And you might think, well, that's trivial. A zillion people do that every day. Yeah, they do. But it's like pilots. Pilots. The most dangerous part of any air travel is the landing. That's when things can go really bad. And as pilots like to joke, any landing you can walk away from is a good one. Meaning that if you accomplish the goal and you're still standing, you've won. So adjust your sights, in that regard. When you're learning how to be blind, learning these skills in terms of doing independent tasks, things will take longer and take more preparation. It's just a fact. We jokingly refer to this as the blind tax. Now, some days the blind tax is not too bad. It's something you've done a bunch of times before. You got it figured out and it all works. Yippee. Blind tax isn't too bad. Other times, no matter how much planning you do, something will go wrong. It's going to happen, despite your best efforts. You'll miss a bus transfer, or you'll trip and you'll bump into something. You'll stub your toe, or somebody will say something to you that rubs you the wrong way. Try not to take it personally. It's going to happen. Do that Zen thing and keep going. Feel accomplishment in small victories. This is a game of inches. Like I said, getting the groceries, getting home and back again. That's a victory. Observation number 5. With a lot of visual conditions, your vision will be distorted. And you're not going crazy. Your eyes will lie to you. My eye condition is called retinitis pigmentosa. Like I said, that distorts the visual information because as those cones and rods in the back of your eye start malfunctioning, the amount of information going through the optic nerve into your brain gets reduced. Well, your brain doesn't like that. It doesn't like operating on insufficient information. So before that visual information ever gets to the conscious level of your brain to where you recognize it as eyesight, your brain tries to patch the holes. It tries to fill in the gaps in the information. And by doing that, it distorts the information. myself, there were times when objects would just suddenly appear in my field of view, like a magic show. Poof! Suddenly there's somebody standing there, or suddenly something disappears from your visual field. Um, this can be a little socially awkward. Bumping into people who you literally did not see standing there, and you just walk right into them or sideswipe them. I have had, when I was losing my sight, I had more than one accusation of inattention, being drunk or high, because they were just standing there, and here comes Jim, walks right into him, does a full body check. Well, obviously the guy's got to be altered in some way, and that can be an awkward situation. That's another reason for possibly considering a white cane. Even if you don't need it necessarily for vision, it's also a signal to the world around you that you have an eye condition, and people may cut you a little bit of slack or offer more assistance or better assistance when you need it by seeing that you carry a white cane. It's not just for you, it's for everyone around you also. In terms of your brain trying to fill in those gaps, different eye conditions do that in different ways. There's an eye disease called Charles-Bonnet syndrome that the brain goes so far in trying to correct for that lack of information that it actually injects images into the visual stream. A friend of mine who has Charles-Bonnet syndrome tells me that before he got diagnosed, he literally thought he was going crazy because he would see people who weren't there. He'd walk into a room that he knew was empty, and there'd be somebody standing there. Or if he looked at a window or a mirror, something that was shiny, he would see, he said it was like looking in a TV set at a football game. And for some reason, he would see a football game, like he's sitting in the stands looking on the field, and he'd see the players lining up and going through a football play. That's his brain's way of dealing with that vision loss. Now, you can imagine that would be pretty disturbing if you didn't know what was going on. But after he got diagnosed and figured out what it was, he actually turned it to his advantage, because he told me that now he still has some usable sight, but he can tell the imaginary people from the real ones, because the imaginary people are nice and crystal clear in his visual field. It's the real people that are blurry silhouettes. So, he took that bad situation, turned it into a tool that helps him cope better, helps him deal better. Observation number 6, you're going to take some knocks. This is a full contact sport. You better get used to it. I'll tell a story about after I sort of graduated from the DVR adjustment training program. I went to my first national convention of the NFB, and this was down in Dallas, Texas. And the national conventions, this is before COVID, so they normally hold those in a big convention center hotel complex, because there's going to be 3,000 blind people here. It's a big chaotic environment. So I go down to Dallas, and I went a day early because I wanted to scope out the hotel. I wanted to develop a mental map in my head so I could navigate better. Part of that whole scout thing, be prepared. So one nice thing that the NFB has traditionally done before its meetings, its national conventions, is they send out an email with written descriptions of the places, saying, here the front of the hotel faces east, and when you go in the main entrance, the check-in desk will be to your right, and the elevators are to your left, and if you go straight ahead, it's a hallway, to the meeting rooms, things like that. So by reading through that, you can develop a mental map. It's going to be a little rough, but it's very helpful. So I had done that. I get there, I check into the hotel, I get to my room, drop off my luggage, and I've been traveling. I'm hungry. I want to go get something to eat. So I get in the elevator and I go down to the main atrium. And this is a huge hotel complex. This atrium is a monster. It's like, 150 feet on a side, several stories tall. It's a big open empty space. It's also got stone and ceramic tiles. It's got a lot of big flat wall areas. Acoustically, it's a nightmare. It's really noisy. So there's a lot of confusing audio information coming at you. But I knew from my mental map, okay, well, I'm standing here by the elevators. If I head off at like the 2 o'clock direction across the atrium, that's where the restaurants are. So I head off. I'm sweeping with my cane. I'm doing well, and I tend to walk on the fast side. I'm very confident. I'm walking along, and off to the side, I hear this woman's voice said, "Sir, you're heading for the elephant." And you hear a lot of conversations when you're in a hotel, and that one just went right past me. And I keep walking, and I hear a little louder, "Sir, you're heading for the elephant." And it sinks in a little bit, and I'm thinking, wow, she must be telling a joke or something. I still doesn't mean anything to me. And I keep walking, and third time I hear her say, "Sir," boom, something hits me like Mike Tyson jabbing right to my sternum, dead center, almost knocks me off my feet. And I step backwards, and oh my goodness, heavy duty shock to the system. And I hear somebody running towards me. "Sir, are you okay? Are you okay?" And I reach up, and I feel this big, hard, cylindrical, blunt object that's at about chest height, horizontal. And I follow it up there, and it's curved. And I say, "What the hell is this?" And she said, "Well, sir, I was trying to tell you, you're walking towards the elephant. We have 2 elephant sculptures here in the atrium, life size." And of course, with my cane, I'm sweeping with the cane, looking for objects at ground level. But an elephant's tusk sits way out beyond its leg, so there's no way in the world I would have felt that. But yeah, I walked right into the elephant in the room. So that's my story about beware the elephant in the room. Things like that are going to happen to you. Before I started learning how to use a cane, when I was still relying on my very faulty eyesight, I went to my doctor, and annual physical, and he's checking me out, taking my blood pressure, looking in my ears, and he looked at my legs and he says, "Oh my God, what have you been doing?" Because my shins, from my knees down, was nothing but scabs and scars and scrapes and bruises. And I had to be honest, I'm finding the furniture, because I didn't know how to navigate. And so I was constantly bouncing off of things and drawing blood. Since then, things have gotten better. I still have quite a few scars on the shins, though. It's going to happen to you. Even when you're good at doing this stuff, you're still going to have face plants. You're still going to sideswipe stuff and trip over stuff. No matter how good you are at navigation and cane travel, you're still going to miss things. It happens. In terms of mental attitude, think before you move. No matter where you are, even if it's familiar territory in your own home, don't just step before you think. Orient yourself, know where you are before you move in any direction. It will save you grief. Number 7, you will become a pack rat. And I don't mean that in a bad way. As a sighted person, if you're a driver, if you look in pretty much anybody's personal automobile, they've got a lot of stuff in there. They've got gloves in the glove box. They've got a fleece or a coat. They've maybe got an extra pair of shoes sitting in there. They've got just lots of stuff in the car. That's their travel gear. Because us blind people, don't have that. We don't have that mobile trunk to carry stuff in. We mostly have stuff in a backpack. One of my students told me one time that, as blind people, we're like turtles. We carry everything on our backs. And it's true. I've always wanted to find an artist that would do a picture or embroider a patch that would have a a turtle with dark glasses and a white cane walking along, and that's our spirit animal, is the turtle. As you become a more independent person, and you do end up carrying everything in a backpack. Again, I'm talking, pre or post pandemic, when we are out and about independently. You start to develop what is, in a sense, a go bag. The stuff that you carry routinely whenever you leave the home. You're going to have to deal with weather. In Colorado here, we can have all 4 seasons in one day. So, maybe you've got a sweater, you've got a fleece, you got, a rain jacket in a stuff bag, you got an extra hat, you got a spare cane. And people tend to get their go bag pretty well situated as they progress. And in fact, Jason and I have been talking about doing a go bag presentation. We might follow on this presentation with a go bag presentation to help people figure out what to carry in their bag. Number 8, you will develop new interests and hobbies, whether you like it or not. Just because a lot of people do things that are very visually oriented or intensive, and if that no longer is a possibility, you'll have to have an outlet for your interests or your creativity or your energy. I'll just give you my personal examples. I was always an avid reader, as I mentioned before. I collected books all the time. A used bookstore was my favorite place on earth, and I had thousands of books. When I could no longer read print books, I didn't know anything about audiobooks because I didn't have to. But I didn't know that such a thing as BARD or the National Library Service or the Talking Book Library. I didn't know those things existed. But I was still sort of able to use the computer with my nose pressed up against the screen. And so I would use eBay. This was before Amazon became the monster that it is, and you can buy anything. So I would go to eBay and I looked up audiobooks, and for some twisted reason, the only audiobooks I could find were ancient history books. And I had zero interest in history. My father was a history teacher, and so of course, being the child of a parent who's an historian, the last thing I wanted to be was an historian. You got to rebel against your parents, right? So I did not want to be an historian, but because I couldn't find anything else in that weird stretch, I bought a few of these ancient history books and listened to them, audio format. And I found, wow, this is really fascinating stuff. Who knew? People 3,000 years ago acted pretty much the same way they do now. They had just as many quirks and foibles and made just as poor decisions as we make today. And that's my observation of history. We, as humans, we're still screwed up. We keep making the same mistakes over and over. But I developed a love of history just from that. Martial arts. I developed an interest in martial arts. I had done a little bit of karate when I was younger. But after becoming blind, I happened to meet an instructor, a martial arts instructor, who had developed a teaching method, and she was teaching self-defense for blind people. And it was based on Krav Maga and Jiu-Jitsu, which are two martial arts styles, and found that I really enjoyed that. It was very physical. It was good for balance and for coordination, and it made me feel safer when I was out and about. So I developed a love of martial arts, and I continue doing that today. That's one of the things that I do at DVR. In addition to assistive technology, I teach self-defense. When they, hopefully post-pandemic, we'll get back to that, because I really enjoy that, and it is genuinely useful, I think, for anybody to know how to defend themselves. I developed interest in gymnastics. One of my students was a gymnastics instructor, and so I had I was always fascinated by gymnasts. How do they do that stuff? Because I never had any skill in that area, and got to talking with him. At that point, he and his brother were running a gymnastics school, and they said, I've always been amazed. How do people, do backflips? Because that just seems like a totally alien thing to me. And he said, well, come to the gym. I'll show you how. And so this guy, hell of a teacher, trained a 50-year-old blind guy who had never done anything like this before, trained me how to do backflips on a trampoline. Who knew that was possible? But, again, we're adaptable. We can learn how to do stuff. I do rock climbing. I've done cross-country skiing, dragon boat. Where if you know anything about dragon boat, it's like a giant canoe with 20 people in it paddling like crazy. Every dragon boat race is a sprint, and so it's a great team activity, and it's very good. It's very adaptive for blind people, because to be good in dragon boat, the team has to be synchronized. There's no way you can win a race if everybody's doing their own thing. So it's all about coordination and accuracy and coordination. So it's a great sport for blind people. Highly recommended, and it will work you out. Observation number 9. You cannot be blind and be a slob at the same time. A lot of sighted people, they walk into their home and they toss their keys somewhere, and they leave their jacket someplace, and their shoes go someplace else, and they just leave things lying around. Well, as blind people, we can't do that. I like to joke that being OCD is a job requirement if you're going to be a blind person. You can't just leave things lying around, because you'll never find them again, and you'll get very frustrated. So, I've got a kind of a little OCD habit. When I come in, my cane goes in this place, my keys and my wallet go over here. If I take off my shoes, they go in a certain place. A place for everything, and everything in its place. You got to be really anal about that stuff, just because there's too many corners and nooks and crannies for things to disappear into. And sometimes that can drive friends and family members a little crazy. They say, well, why can't you just relax? You walk in the door and you've got this 10-minute ritual that you have to go through with all of your stuff. Well, it's because if I don't, then I'll never be able to leave the house again, because I'll be searching for a day just to gather up my stuff to be able to leave the house. So, take that seriously. Get very serious and methodical about where you put stuff, and tell your friends and families, don't rearrange, don't tidy up. My wife and I have a running joke. If I can't find something, I'll ask her, has this been tidied? Meaning, was it moved? And it doesn't matter if it just moved, a few inches or to the other side of the table. If it's a 1/4 inch away from where I'm looking, it might as well not even exist in this universe. It has to be in the same place. Otherwise, I have to go on an expedition to hunt it down. Let's see. Observation number 10. It's okay to laugh at yourself. In fact, you have to laugh at yourself, because if you don't laugh, you'll cry. Things are going to happen. Like I said, you're going to take some knocks. You're going to do some face plants. You're going to bump into stuff. You're going to trip, despite your best efforts. When I was, first learning blind skills, I would get really frustrated, really angry. I'd bump into something and I'd cuss. I would, scream one of the 7 words you can't say on TV. And that's not helpful. That puts you in a bad frame of mind. It affects your disposition. If you can laugh, if you can retrain yourself to laugh when something goes wrong, that's a really good thing. People might think you're crazy, but it's helpful because it improves your brain chemistry, your blood chemistry. When you laugh, you release endorphins, and it'll make you feel better emotionally. In fact, there was a famous article, I don't recall the author, but I think it was in Reader's Digest way back in the 70s. This guy was going through a health crisis with a bad disease. He was getting treated for it, but he was largely bedridden. And he made a point, because he always felt better if he laughed. And so he made a point every day he would listen to or watch something funny. He would watch old TV sitcoms, the Three Stooges, or listen to radio shows, and he would consciously get something he could laugh at every single day. And he attributed a lot of his recovery from this disease to his laughter. Uh, Hence laughter is the best medicine, and it is true. Physiologically, it's provable. Uh, Attitude is everything. Happiness is a choice. Uh, if something bad does happen to you, try to laugh at yourself about it. Uh, you, you'll feel a little weird about it at first, but it is over the course of time. It's like learning patience. Laughter is my default reaction now. So if I bump into something, I laugh and or say something to myself. If I'm walking down the sidewalk and I trip over a crack in the sidewalk, I say, "Oh, missed that one." I'll say it out loud. And I've had people at the bus stop comment to me. He said, "Wow, you really handled that gracefully. I would have thought you'd be angry or bitter or something." Nope, laugh at it. Absolutely. And humor can be a good icebreaker. You've probably experienced this when you're in a room or standing in line. A lot of people get very nervous when they're around somebody with a disability. Doesn't matter what it is. People, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. They don't want to say anything awkward or embarrass somebody. So I try to break the ice with a joke. Like if I bump into someone, I say, "Oh, sorry, there, didn't see a ha ha white cane." Make fun of yourself. Um, and that sometimes that can help other people loosen up a little bit. Ask people questions if you're standing in line. Just, is this the back of the line? Could you tell me, when the line moves up? Because I may not hear you take a step. Little things like that. Um, uh, uh, Sometimes, again, this can be socially awkward. I've had this happen, and other people I know have had this happen. One friend of mine was sitting on a bus. He's just sitting there minding his own business, uh, sitting facing the aisle of the bus. And after about 20 minutes riding on the bus, a guy sitting across the aisle with him accused him. He says, "Why are you staring at me? What are you looking for, a fight?" And my friend didn't know what to say. He said, "No, I'm blind. I'm just sitting. I'm not staring at anything." And there was a memoir written by a guy with RP called Cockeyed. Very good book for friends and family. Every one of the episodes that this guy relates in his book about adjusting to RP are things that I had on my checklist of, yep, I did that. I did that. It was like keeping a score sheet. And he was sitting in a bar, sitting at a table, drinking a beer. And after a while, the bartender came and said, "Sir, you're going to have to leave." "Well, why?" He says, "Because there's some women sitting across the room and they say you've been staring at them for the last half hour and they feel very uncomfortable with that." And he was trying to pass. He didn't have a white cane. He was still trying to pass as a sighted person. And that could be really embarrassing. If those women had seen a white cane, they would have said, "Oh, blind guy, not staring, he's just sitting." So another reason, again, you might hear this repeated many times, carry a white cane. It's not just for you. Unexpected benefits of not being able to see. When I'm doing presentations like this, when I was younger, when I could see, talking in front of an audience would petrify me. I would get bad flop sweats and shakes and anxiety, serious. Funny enough, unexpectedly, now that I can't see an audience, I don't have any trouble talking in front of groups. Who knew? Uh, uh, Observation number 11, disability does not just affect the person with the disability. It's going to affect friends and family members. People will change, and not always in positive ways. You may lose some friends, and you probably will lose some friends or people you consider to be friends. when I was still working, when my eyesight kind of dropped off the cliff, and I thought I had friends. Turns out they were coworkers. They weren't really friends. They were friendships of convenience, meaning, we shared the same space, 40 hours a week, but they weren't really friends. But since becoming blind, I have gained a lot of friends. I have met people that I never would have met otherwise through teaching and through different organizations, different support groups, etc. You meet people who are, in your tribe, in the same boat, adjusting to same things. You've got a lot of shared experience sitting in the room with you, more than you know. And once you get to talking with them, you will develop friendships, pretty much guaranteed. Take advantage of that. Again, maybe a little awkward at first. Making friends is awkward, but guarantee it will happen. Observation number 12, you're going to become a nerd, not in a bad way. What I mean by that is technology, assistive technology is the great equalizer, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that just because I happen to teach that topic. The amount and the capabilities of the technology that we have today are just staggering. I'm a computer geek, and if you had told me 30 years ago that we would have a gadget the size of a Hershey bar in our pocket that could take a picture of a page of text and read it to us, that it could simultaneously translate one language to another, that it would give us global positioning, to within 30 feet of any point on Earth, that I would have, the equivalent of a library sitting in the palm of my hand, I would have said you're a liar. And I'm a tech guy. I'm a science fiction nerd. I wouldn't have believed that possible, but it is true. Technology is the great equalizer for being independent and being employable. Most people who are blind want to continue working, want to be productive, even if they don't have to necessarily for financial reasons. It's good to stay busy. It's good to have a purpose in life, to do something, to achieve something, to take meaning from your actions. And technology is a heavy hitter for that. The bad news is you're never going to stop learning all this nerd stuff, because the technology is a constantly changing landscape. There's always going to be new stuff to learn. You'll never be done with that. The good news is you'll never get Alzheimer's disease, because it's been shown medically that if you keep learning, if you keep your brain engaged and active and creating new mental paths and new neurological memories, that is one way to combat degenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. So, keep that doing, keep learning stuff. Don't rest on your laurels. Don't be satisfied with things as they are. Keep striving. Whether it's physical or mental, keep pushing yourself. We're almost done. Number 13. As a blind person, you're going to wear a lot of different hats. And by that, I mean, depending on the circumstances, you're going to play a lot of different roles. You're going to be an explorer. You're going to be a project planner. You're going to be an advocate. You're going to be a teacher. And this is just a fact of life, because you're a member of a relatively smallish tribe, and a lot of people, when you meet them, they may never have met a blind person in their life. You may be the first one, and how you behave, how you interact with them could color their perceptions of blindness or disability for a long time. So back when I was, traveling to and from the office every single day, using bus and light rail, at least once a week, someone would say, "Wow, you just walked right down those stairs like you could see, no trouble at all." And after about the 12th time you hear that, you start to feel, oh, maybe I should just get a little bit snarky. It says, yeah, I'm. But I decided, no, I use this as a teaching moment. I just say, nope, it's the white cane, it's training, and it's practice. It's not magic. It's not like the movies with Daredevil where you have to have superhuman skills. It's just learning how to do it and practicing it. So resist the urge to bite someone's head off if they say something stupid at you, or they see that you're blind and they start talking really loud at you like your ears don't work. Just maybe correct them in a socially responsible way, but resist the urge to snap at people. It's easy to do, I know, but try to make it make the game friendlier for everybody that way. And finally, number 14, I saved this one for last. The skills that you will learn adjusting to vision loss are exactly the kind of skills that employers look for. Things like, excuse me, problem solving, attention to detail, willingness to work hard, ability to think outside the box, tech skills, repurposing tools for different purposes. I mean, these are things that blind people do every single day. I read somewhere that for the average sighted user, when they're on an internet, on a website, if they don't get the result they expect, when they click on a link, for example, or click on a button, if they don't get response within something like 2/3 of a second, they just either lose interest or they do something else. They go to another link. And blind people, we are used to having to deal with inaccessible things with computers all the time. And we develop enormous toolboxes of tools and techniques and knowledge to help us, use that technology to the best effect. We are problem solvers, and we get to practice that every single day. It can be hugely frustrating interacting with websites and programs that aren't very adaptive or aren't very accessible. But in doing that, you will improve your skills. The average screen reader user is a much better technologist than the average sighted person, just because we have to be. And that's really helpful for employment. One of my friends, Mike Hess, another blind guy, another technology guy, formed a nonprofit called the Blind Institute of Technology. And the purpose of that group is they connect technically talented blind people with employers. And that's where I first got this notion of, blindness skills are exactly what employers are looking for. You may not have thought of it that way, but it's absolutely true. We do workarounds. We are naturally attentive to detail. We usually have good memory, just because we have to. We can't just jot something down easily. It takes more work for us. We have to use other technologies in order to take notes, and usually memory is one of the things that improves. So in sort of wrapping up here, my conclusion is learn, laugh, and live your life. This isn't the end of the world. It's just sort of a speed bump in the road. But I will tell you, even though it's difficult sometimes and arduous and frustrating, it is not a showstopper. Vision loss will not end your life. It may feel like that sometimes, but you will get past it if you work at it. It's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of patience, a lot of tolerance, and energy. But you can do it. I've seen it happen. I've done it, and I believe you can too. So that sort of wraps up my presentation.
Jim, this was absolutely incredible. Thank you for the re-record. You hit all the points, including some more. I wish we would have had that question and answer piece, but you know what? On the YouTube link, we'll permit people to ask questions in the comments. I'll get those to you, and you'll be able to answer them as we go. And I also love it. I'm going to hold you accountable for a follow-up presentation on the go bag. So I can't wait for that. And
Yeah,
we'll set a time to get you recorded for that.
love to do that. Absolutely. That's something I've done several times, as a teacher. That's one of those topics that we brush off and redo, periodically, just because it is useful and helps people think of things that they might not come up with on their own. So we will do that.
Sounds great. This is Jason Romero and Jim Pilkington.